following is from a cooperative project for acquiring skills essential to learning.
There have to be different areas for everything, too. Like, you can't stick something like the World Trade Center in the middle of a residential area. It just doesn't fit in. It has to be put together in a way that it's, like, organized.
So we can be organized enough to know what we're doing. We just can't go out, okay, let's build a city. Build out of sand, blocks, who knows?
Okay, so what do you suggest?
You have to start with your ideas and build from the ground up. You have to realize what kind of a city you want. If you want it really modern, if you want to go back and pretend it's like, you know, like an old city, or what kind of a city you want it to be.
Yeah, you need to know what kind of city you want, but you also need to know what makes up a city.
Everything that makes a city, well, there's people.
And then there's transportation.
We probably need some factories.
Houses is one that we really need.
You need the basic utilities and the sources of energy.
How about recreation and entertainment?
But a city has to be self-sufficient. You know, in the city you can just walk a block and be wherever you need to go.
Yeah, that'd be neat.
But how do you change it?
We had to tear down some buildings in order to clear this site because this whole town center area is already built up, and that made the cost of the land really expensive, and so we're going to have a hotel.
Well, you can change the existing city.
In that hotel, and there are going to be a lot of people that need to go there. The downtown is really located off the model over here, and I would expect an awful lot of the people to be coming to the hotel back and forth in that direction. Can you handle that from a street and parking?
We're going to be concerned that we don't overload the street because of the size of the building.
Or we can just start from scratch, where no city has been built before.
That much noise. And this is a college out on an island, and you can see the derail goes underneath the water and comes up on the island. But for most cities, you just can't start building from scratch.
And not everybody can afford a subway. If they added more buses, then the traffic would just get worse. And you may not have room for another highway.
So something like a people mover is a good idea.
What's so special about that?
Well, it doesn't have drivers. It's run by computers. It doesn't have an engine. It's run by electricity. And it has its own elevated guideway, so it doesn't have to run on the streets.
Well, it seems like an elevator, except it moves sideways instead of up and down.
To go somewhere, you just punch some buttons, and a computer sends a people mover over to where you are, and then the people mover takes you to another station.
Well, I think there'll be various amounts of jobs that humans can do, too, and not necessarily run by a computer. And I think one of them is like to drive this huge tank-like vehicle, except about 3 times as large, with a big spout coming out of the side. And like, it'll make a loud noise, and out comes a house. And it'll just drive along and make a nice row of houses for all sorts of different people.
But most cities have to worry about more than just housing or traffic problems.
What if you want to change the heart of the existing city, the center city? What would you do if more people lived in the suburbs, but continued to work in the city?
And this made the traffic and pollution really bad.
If people don't ride mass transportation, the transit systems lose money and go downhill.
people don't shop in the center city, business suffers.
Okay, so how are we going to change the center
We
city?
have to design buildings so that they will fit the population of the city. You'll have to design them in different shapes so that they fit together in the most convenient way that they can.
A lot of times we had to utilize rooftops as well.
That would be
You know,
fun.
could stick all sorts of things up there. Could dome it, you know, have a garden or whatever. Put basketball court on your roof. You
Wow,
could
that's
use
cool.
all sorts of things on the roof.
To save space, everything goes underground. At least as many stories, or, well, maybe a little less. It's just about as many stories as it goes above ground.
I think one thing that we've hit upon here is that there's not going to be much room and things are going to have to be more compact. So I was thinking that the buildings would be going up and they'd be sort of linked together. It would be like a city within a city. In each building there would be stores and restaurants and maybe a movie theater. And so they can just stay in that general area.
Well, why not build a shopping mall and put it right in the middle of the city? Instead of surrounding it with acres and acres of parking lots like the suburban shopping malls, you can build a transportation complex underneath it.
That way, you take care of part of the traffic problem, and they also encourage people to shop.
But we're going to become overpopulated, and we have to make more cities in order to keep these people somewhere.
Okay, so maybe you need to do more than just change the existing city. Maybe you need to plan your city from scratch.
Yeah, I was talking before about how you should shape your buildings so that they fit conveniently. Like, I think in the future you can still have some normal buildings like we do now, you know, all shaped on the ground. But then we'll have to have like a block here supporting one big building here for living space.
Okay.
And so if you want to get up there, you take the elevator up there. And the nicest thing is that you can fit more people into the city.
That sounds like what this architect, Paolo Soleri, is doing. He doesn't want the cities to spread out for miles and miles like a lot of cities do today. So maybe cities can just take up a few square miles. But they can be many, many stories high and very compact and dense. Soleri calls this kind of city an arcology.
I bet it would hold hundreds of thousands of people. Well, he's working on a small arcology now, isn't he?
It's just for 5,000 people. Well, people will live in homes on the outer part of the arcology. So everybody will at least have one view of the open countryside.
Well, when you think about it, the idea behind arcologies is a simple one. It's to build upward instead of outward.
Well, it uses space efficiently. It uses the space that we have on Earth really good.
Well, for the ground, I don't think it's very, too great to build really high buildings, because what if they collapse? They fall on everything. They're really big. But also, I think they should be relative size, not too big and not too small, to take up some space.
I don't know of anyone who'd want to live in the top floor of a building that's, say, 5,000 stories up.
You can say that again.
People might not be afraid of flying in a plane, but to just be on a balcony and looking down at the teeny-weeny ants down below who used to be people.
If we can build a city on land, then why not on the ocean?
How about the Aquapolis, an experimental floating city built by Mitsubishi Heavy Industries for the government of Japan?
Well, how come you don't get seasick out there in the middle of the ocean? How do you keep it stable in water?
Well, the Aquapolis is semi-submersible.
Well, what's that mean?
Well, in bad weather, extra seawater is let in through these large columns. The added weight lowers the city into the water, leaving less exposed above the water to high seas and wind.
Well, how does it get back up again?
Well, they just pump the water back out.
Oh.
I don't think I'd like living in the middle of the ocean too much.
Oh, I would.
Well, there must be somebody who likes floating cities, because they're going to be planning even larger ones in the future. I think that a city on the water would be good, because not only with the solar power or nuclear power, if they wanted it, they could also have like hydraulic power with the water undercurrents and things.
Since Earth is 2/3 water, it's a really good idea. And also, no one has said anything about wind power.
That's a good idea.
There's more wind on the water. It blows stronger than anywhere else on Earth. And there could be huge windmills supported in the water, making huge amounts of current. And there could be a whole city on the water.
That's a pretty good idea. Well, has anyone thought about building a city in space?
There could be a space colony, and it would be like one circular area with branches coming off.
Because it would be in a Earth-like condition, like they would have the lake and water and cities and towns and things like that.
And I think that maybe we should be tapping the moon.
Oh, neat.
Well, we haven't really done much with that. If we bring it up there, it could be used for commercial use or experiments and research.
There's also a lot of natural resources on the moon in asteroids.
Well, you'll need these to support human life and build space colonies.
And there's an endless supply of solar energy. There's no gravity whatsoever. So moving heavy objects, for example, wouldn't be that much of a problem in space.
Well, I think that if you're going to have a city in space, the moon would probably be the best place to put them, because it's pretty close, not like a far-off planet, unless you could develop a high-speed rocket or something.
I think there's a more likely that they'll just set it up in space, floating, rather than on the moon for some reason, or they'll dig into the moon, and like it'll be some huge commune up on the moon or something like that.
Well, first you can take the space shuttle into space.
The next step is to mine the moon, and then send the minerals into orbit.
And have a floating factory for the stuff.
Then the last stage is to build the first space colony. I think that in the past we've always needed wildlife, trees, and parks, but in the future we're going to be coming into like a computer age where I don't know if anyone's going to care about trees anymore.
So how do we design a city of the future? What was it that we have to remember?
You need to remember there's an awful lot to a city.
Oh, right, yeah.
And there are two different ways to change it.
Are you sure?
You can change the existing city, or you can just start from scratch.
Definitely.
Yeah, you need to know what kind of city you want, but you also need to know what makes up a city.
But you have to have a good idea.
So why don't you design your own city of the future?
ThinkAbout is supported by state and provincial agencies working through the Agency for Instructional Television. Together, serving education.